Hey guys, it's Godbars here, the self-proclaimed hip-hop historian, and this is the 121st episode of my series where I grab a vinyl from my collection, talk about why I love it, what influence it has, and what its place is in the grand scheme of hip-hop. While I've mostly been using the sets dedicated to modern albums to discuss more recent acts, I figured it's now been long enough since my last review for these guys that I can finally return to the legendary outfit A Tribe Called Quest. I did both Midnight Marauders as well as Low End Theory in my first 50 videos, so definitely check those out if you want to get a little bit more background on my personal introduction to them. I'll leave a link down below to those. But considering the album we're discussing today came out in 2016, I'm not going to spend too much time delving into their earlier, especially since I already did in those previous videos. I'm not too sure about if they went into this LP knowing it was going to be their last, or if that idea was just floating around, but either way, the passing of key mainstay member Phife Dawg definitely acted as a catalyst and ended up making their send-off more bitter, yet fitting. They also got original member Jerobi White from the first album back on here, who absolutely kills it on here, and it makes me wonder why he ever left Tribe to pursue being a chef in the first place. He has a number of just ridiculous flows and lyrical runs on here, and despite Phife passing prior to the album's completion, all the verses you hear from him were specifically recorded for this album, which puts it in that special group of exceptions I have for posthumous releases, along with Life After Death and the Don Illuminati. However, this is one of the few albums that deals with a group member's recent passing, but despite having its heartfelt moments, it's much more of a celebration of their life opposed to a pity party. Q-Tip had already proved himself as one of the all-time greats as both an MC and producer, but his uncanny ability to have a vision and see it out till the end is super commendable, especially when you're doing it to honor your friend that's gone. You have to remember that these aren't two guys who met in their 20s when some label put them together. It isn't like they had chemistry in the studio but weren't really friends outside of that. These are dudes who have known each other since they were 2 years old. And I'm not very superstitious, but if that isn't destiny, then I don't know what is. Of course, the legendary Ali Shaheed Muhammad returns to work behind the boards, giving us Tribe in their most complete form. On We Got It From Here, Thank You for Your Service, which of course is also in reference to Phife Dawg. However, outside of the couple of tracks towards the back end of the LP, most of this thing plays out how any other Tribe classic would, with the various members and affiliates trading bars and building on the same themes. They managed to make their first release in nearly 20 years insanely fresh and modern, while still bringing in some of the familiar aspects that they made their name with. They have jazz and soul samples, infectious flows filled with character and distinct personality, as well as socio-political commentary that actually starts with the very first track. They open the experience with this dense and metaphorical think piece about race relations that's creatively relayed through space travel that then segues into the equally confrontational We the People. While the vibe lightens up a bit after this track, for now at least, there's still almost always a direct theme and or message that walks that thin line of having something important and poignant to say, but not coming off preachy and insistent. Even on the song titled Disgeneration, it comes off more like they're defending the younger kids against the older generation, if anything. And while it may underlie certain issues they have, unlike virtually any of the other rappers who criticize modern hip hop, Q-Tip and the others not only are doing their part to help musically through the forward thinking album itself, but they go out of their way to shout out a handful of younger MCs like Earl Sweatshirt or Joey Badass, and they basically pass them the torch, so to speak. That track also features a dope sample of the classic musical youth song Pass the Dutchie that Missy Elliott, Public Enemy, and plenty of other hip hop acts have utilized. But going back to that light they shine on modern rappers, they even have one of the MCs that they shouted out as a feature on here, that being the legendary Kendrick Lamar, which was definitely one of the most exciting collaborations, arguably of that decade, especially if you were a fan of both of them when We Got It From Here came out. And speaking of the features here, that's one of the best aspects in an album that's chock full of amazing qualities. You get to hear so many dope combinations of rappers that you won't really hear much elsewhere, due to A Tribe Called Quest recruiting affiliates from all stages of their expansive career, bringing together old friends they knew from day one like Busta Rhymes, with guys like Consequence, who was Q-Tip's cousin and didn't really start rapping with Tribe until their 96 album Beats, Rhymes, and Life. But that isn't even close to everyone in the feature department, because they made sure to get all kinds of top tier names that treated us to collaborations with artists they knew the fans would go crazy for. Especially when you add in the factor of it being their final goodbye of an album, it goes without saying that everyone featured is probably honored that they got to partake in this legendary group's pretty selective discography. I mean, when you get Andre 3000 coming out of the woodwork to not just do a feature, but do a whole concept track where he goes back and forth with Q-Tip, you know that being asked to join in is a privilege. And they sure do show it, because literally everyone who pops up on here does their part, whether it's Elton John's contributions to the Killer Posse cut Solid Wall of Sound, or even Kanye West, who surprisingly takes a back seat on his feature to just provide the hook for his respective track. Other notable names include Talib Kweli, Anderson .Paak, and Jack White of the White Stripes, who does this little ominous guitar sting that comes in and out throughout the experience, and it adds this kind of beautifully abstract feeling to the whole thing, and gives it the impression that there's something bigger than just music going on here. And yes, I know how corny that sounds. The direct references to Five Dog and his tragic death come in the form of the gut-wrenching Lost Somebody, and the lighter and more optimistic tribute, The Donald, which very fittingly closes out the album and effectively draws the curtain on A Tribe Called Quest's career. And while of course that saddens any fan, you have to think about how the vast majority of music acts in general don't get this sort of closure with their career. Many just have one classic that never gets followed up, or they overstay their welcome and oversaturate the market so much that people aren't as heartbroken when they finally do call it quits. We Got It From Here, Thank You For Your Service is an LP that made every Tribe fan proud, as well as probably recruiting some new ones, and it's one of those projects where even if I wasn't deeply nostalgic for it, I could still pretty objectively give you a list of reasons for why it's arguably the best send-off album in the genre, outside of maybe Life After Death if you want to count it. Obviously, I don't dislike any song on here, since I can't even think of one spot that I don't enjoy, so to narrow some tracks down, I'm gonna leave out any of the ones I already mentioned by name. That leaves my honorable mentions as Whatever Will Be, Kids, Melatonin, Enough, Black Spasmodic, Moving Backwards, Conrad Tokyo, and Ego. It took some time, but I decided my top 3 favorite tracks overall would have to be The Space Program, Mobius, and The Killing Season. Thank you for watching my 121st video. Next time we're going to go pretty far in the opposite direction, but the contrast of that pick with this Tribe album will help illustrate the point I'm always trying to make about diversity in modern hip-hop being a good thing. So check in for that one, and if you enjoyed, be sure to like, subscribe, and let me know what your favorite songs off this modern masterpiece are. Don't forget to have a great day, and I'll see you next time, okay? Alright.